Hello, everybody, and welcome to That Wrestling Show, the podcast where all pro wrestling matters. I am your host, Bill Yankovi, and this is a very interesting week for the program for a number of reasons. One is this is the final show before the big 500th episode next week. Also, I'm going to be reviewing Ring of Honor's Best in the World 2021. I'm going to preview Impact Wrestling's Slammiversary pay-per-view and WWE's Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Those two shows both happening this weekend. Unfortunately, we have to start with some sad news in the world of professional wrestling, as earlier this week, one of the best heels of the 1980s, and maybe one of the best heels ever in professional wrestling, passed away in Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Paul Orndorff had recently been suffering from dementia and had been in a hospital. He passed away on Monday at the age of 71 years old. Now, his career path is very, very interesting because he was a college football player at the University of Tampa and was very, very successful and ended up being inducted into the University of Tampa Athletic Hall of Fame in 1986. He was drafted in the 1973 NFL draft by the New Orleans Saints in the 12th round, but he quit training camp. He voluntarily, that's the key there, voluntarily quit training camp, citing personal problems. He attended training camp in 1974 with the Chicago Bears and then joined the Jacksonville Express of the World Football League in 1975, but was injured. And then after that, he made the transition into professional wrestling, where he was trained by the legendary Hiro Matsuda, among others, and made his debut in 1976. And he started off really in the Florida territory and then made his way to Mid-South and then went into the Georgia territory. And then he got his big break, you could say, in late 1983, where he moved to the World Wrestling Federation, and he would be a very big part of the WWF's rise to national prominence, as he would be in the main event of the first WrestleMania in 1985, teaming with Roddy Piper against Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. Now, after that, he ended up being a babyface for over a year, with the angle being that Bobby Heenan had a bounty on him after Orndorff fired Heenan as his manager, and it got to $50,000, and Orndorff was you could say either the second or the third most popular guy in the WWF at that time, with Hogan obviously being the most popular. Andre the Giant you could put in there as the number 2. You could put Junkyard Dog in there as the number 2, but Orndorff was also in that mix for the number 2. Then, in the summer of '86, in a tag team match, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff turned his back on Hulk Hogan, and this started one of the biggest feuds of the 1980s with Hogan and Orndorff, which had a big match in Toronto, which was a part of the big event, in front of, at the time, the biggest attended audience for a professional wrestling match. It was 76,000. And the feud culminated in one of the greatest steel cage matches of all time on Saturday night's main event, where Hulk Hogan ultimately prevailed and retained the WWF title. There is legend that had Andre the Giant not been physically able to go at WrestleMania 3, Orndorff was going to be the guy that was going to go for that spot in the main event of WrestleMania 3. So Orndorff, for the rest of 1987, would fire Bobby Heenan again and made Oliver Humperdinck his new manager, and was a part of the main event of the first Survivor Series, where he teamed up with Hulk Hogan along with Bam Bam Bigelow, Ken Patera, and Don Morocco. They would be on the losing side of that match to Andre the Giant's team. After the year ended, Paul Orndorff went into semi-retirement for a few years and then came back to WCW in 1990, where he was a face. And this is kind of a brief run because, well, he was only there for 3 months. The biggest thing that he did really was align himself with Sting and the Dudes with Attitudes, and kind of assisted Sting in winning the world title from Ric Flair in 1990. Then he would leave and do independence for a while, but would come back at the end of 1992 back to WCW and would be back to his old heel self. And one of the big accomplishments that he had was winning the TV championship in the finals of a tournament. He defeated Eric Watts in the finals to win the WCW television title. And he held that belt for many months before losing it to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat at a Clash of the Champions. Then at the end of 93, going into 94, Paul Roma would appear into the life of Paul Orndorff, and they would form a tag team, and they would be known as Pretty Wonderful. And they would end up winning the WCW tag team titles at the very first Bash at the Beach over Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan. Now, what some of you might not realize is that this match was the semi-main event to Flair Hogan. So this match went on before Flair and Hogan. Then they would go into a feud with Stars and Stripes, Marcus Alexander Bagwell, and the Patriot. I mentioned that a couple weeks ago, talking about the Patriot. And they would have some good back and forth matches, and the team would stay together till about early 95 when Paul Roma ended up getting let go by WCW. So Paul Orndorff, the rest of the time, would be in singles competition, and he would have this angle where he really wasn't himself. And Gary Spivey, who was a well-known psychic, came in and basically convinced Paul Orndorff that he is Mr. Wonderful. That he truly is Mr. Wonderful. And with that, we would get one of the best theme songs of the 1990s from Paul Orndorff. And I'm just going to play it for you after the Lay's commercial gets through. So I'll just play a little snippet for you. If you know the words, go right ahead and sing along with it. Wonderful, they call him Mr. Wonderful. Yeah, he is a wonderful, and he knows it too. All right, I'm going to stop there before I get in trouble. But his career would end in 1995, and he would end up working at the WCW power plant, training several wrestlers before it closed in 2001. The last WWE appearance that Mr. Wonderful made was in August 2004 at Hulk Hogan's birthday celebration. That was the last time he appeared on live television. Throughout his career, he won many a championship. He was the American Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Champion, the NWA National Heavyweight Champion on 3 separate occasions, was a co-holder of the National Wrestling League Tag Team title with B. Brian Blair. In the Mid-America territory, he was a co-holder of the World 6-Man Tag Team titles with Gorgeous George Jr. and Tommy Gilbert, and held the Memphis version of the Southern Heavyweight title. In the Mid-South territory, he was a 5-time Mid-South North American Heavyweight Champion and a co-holder of the Mid-South Tag Team titles with Ted DiBiase. Held the Peach State Wrestling Cordell City Heavyweight title, was a 2-time co-holder of the Southeastern Tag Team titles with Dick Slater and Norvell Austin, respectively. Held the Universal Wrestling Federation Southern States title, held the WCW television title, was a 3-time co-holder of the NWA/WCW tag team titles. He held the NWA tag title with Jimmy Snuka once, and then held the WCW tag titles twice with Paul Roma. And his accomplishments include enshrinement into the WWE Hall of Fame, the class of 2005, the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum class of 2009, the NWA Hall of Fame class of 2009, the George Tragos Luthez Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame class of 2017, and the Men's Wrestling Award winner from the Cauliflower Alley Club in 2016. And I do want to say that I did see Mr. Wonderful on television. I saw him wrestle in WCW. That was where I first caught Paul Orndorff wrestling. And, looking back on some of the older footage, especially this week, he had one of the most devastating pile drivers, I think, in all of professional wrestling, because the way he did it, especially when he landed the pile driver, the guy that took the pile driver, it seemed like there was a little bit of an added bounce when he hit the pile driver, and it just added a little bit more impact to the move than some of the other wrestlers would when they did hit the pile driver. And Paul Orndorff was a very believable heel, one of, like I said, one of the biggest heels of the 1980s. I would think he's in the top 5 when you talk about Hogan's greatest rivals. Orndorff would have to be top 5 right there. Just a terrific wrestler, all-around athlete. And you kind of wonder, in a way, what would have happened had he ever held a World Heavyweight Championship. That would have been something that, could have been interesting to see. But we never got the chance to truly see what Mr. Wonderful could have done as a World Heavyweight Champion. Paul Orndorff passed away again this past Monday at the age of 71 years old. Okay, on to the other story of the week, and this is kind of a disturbing story. A few weeks ago, Michael Elgin had been reported missing and was eventually found. Well, earlier this week, Michael Elgin was arrested, and this is not good news. Of course, Michael Elgin wrestled in almost everywhere that you could think of. Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, IWA Mid-South, PWG, among so many other promotions. But I do believe that this might be the end of Michael Elgin's in-ring career, because he was arrested, and WrestlingNews.co is the one that broke this story. And I'm gonna say this right now before I read the article. that this is kind of a disturbing story. So if anything that I read here, ekes you out or you don't feel comfortable with, by all means, go forward to the show, because there is other stuff that I will be talking about shortly, but I did want to bring this up. So, here is the article that was written by Angel Rodriguez of WrestlingNews.co. WrestlingNews.co has learned that Aaron Frobel, better known to wrestling fans as Michael Elgin, was arrested on June the 29th and charged for violation of protective order. The case has been assigned to investigations. The order of protection filed on May the 21st by Frobel's ex-fiancée, who, for the purpose of this article, we will only use her first name, which is Alex, says she left her home for my safety on April 21st because I was being abused physically, mentally, verbally, and emotionally. The protective order further states, and I quote, "I had a plan to leave a few times before, but always backed out from fear. Since I left, I have received hundreds of phone calls, hundreds of text messages, numerous videos, and suicide threats from him. He has also reached out to my friends and family. Whenever I or someone he has reached out to block him, he uses the free text calling apps to make a fake number and continues calling and texting. Sometimes saying it is him, sometimes pretending to be other people. I have asked him not to contact me numerous times." The protective order also states, "Since I've been in a relationship with the respondent, I have suffered sexual, mental, emotional, and verbal abuse from him. Abuse included punishment for saying no to sex, berating me verbally in public and private, isolating me from my friends and family, monitoring my phone and computer to see if I am complying, extreme control, sexual caretaking, pressure to engage in sex acts I expressed not wanting to do, exposing my sexual health by seeing male and female sex workers during our relationship, insulting and shaming me, and intimidation. I recently found out he has been texting me our entire relationship from different fake numbers, pretending to be people from my past and saying nasty things about me. I believe this was used along with many other tactics of control and manipulation to break me down and keep me under his control." WrestlingNews.co spoke with Alex, and she told them that he violated the protective order over 60 times, and before he was arrested on June 29th, there were claims being made on Facebook that he disappeared. She told WrestlingNews.co that Frobel had been claiming mental health issues as his defense. Alex told WrestlingNews.co that she wants her story out to prevent this from happening to someone else. Alex also said, "I respect everyone's sexuality, but it should be noted that men and women are people he goes after, not only women. The warning is for everyone, not just for women." She also added, "He used threats of suicide many times after I left. A couple of girls have reached out to me since I left and told me the same stories as his ex-wife Rachel can tell you as well. He's continuing to threaten suicide as a manipulation tactic." WrestlingNews.com has made attempts to get a response from Frobel, but we have not heard back. And the reports are up online if anyone wants to see them. First of all, I feel terrible for Alex. I feel terrible for this young woman that she had to be put through a terrible situation by really a real piece of shit human being in Michael Elgin. No individual, no man or woman should ever have to go through this. And the fact that people like Michael Elgin, who continue to disobey, requests of no's and stops and all of that really makes me sick, kind of boils myself, and this is the kind of thing that in this day and age we're trying to get rid of, and it's a shame that there are pieces of shit like this in the world still to this day. And I hope that Michael Elgin rots in hell for all eternity for what he has done. And I really think he's done in wrestling. He is done. I don't see anybody taking him back after this. I really don't. And if anyone does, I think it's a big disappointment because the evidence is just there and it is damaging, really. All I gotta say is please support those who have been victims of sexual abuse, mental or physical, and just pray for them, hope they are all right, and Michael Elgin can, Michael Elgin can go fuck himself. There. I said it. Michael Elgin can go fuck himself. NXT UK news, and this is not good news if you are fans of Walter. WWE medical staff confirmed yesterday that the current NXT UK champion has suffered a severe injury to his left hand and has been deemed unfit to compete for his scheduled rematch against Ilya Dragunov. An update was later reported by Mike Johnson that this is a legitimate injury. This is not a storyline injury, so we'll have to see what happens to Walter, who really has been on a roll the last year and a half, 2 years, and just going to have to hope that he's all right and he could come back to the ring once he is 100% healthy. So, this past Sunday, we had a pay-per-view. We had Best in the World 2021 from Ring of Honor. And this was quite a show from beginning to end. I'm going to go through each match. I'm going to give you guys my ratings. And I'm going to tell you what Dave Meltzer thought of this. Because this show, for the most part, has been positively praised, as it should, because this was really a fun show to watch from beginning to end. And even the worst match on the show was not that bad. It really was not that bad. So we had a couple of pre-show matches, and I'm going to talk about them. The first one was Ray Horus against Demonic Flamita. This was a rematch from a few weeks ago on Ring of Honor television. This was a fun little match. Good back and forth. I'm really digging the Flamita character. I'm really enjoying his kind of evil side, his demonic side. And it's really, really good. A lot of high-flying moves. Ray Horus would get the win with a nice roll-up. Really good match. Flamita attacked after the bout. Just a fun match to watch. I gave this a C. Meltzer gave it 3.5 stars. So the other pre-show match was the Bouncers of Brian Malonis and the Bear City Bruiser against PCO and Danhausen. So you got a little bit of comedy in here, but you could see PCO can still go. The Bouncers, I think, have found a groove as a heel tag team, and Danhausen is so entertaining. He really is. It's an enjoyable match. PCO and Danhausen got the win after PCO hit the moonsault. I gave this a D only because there were points where it was a little draggy, but it wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible. Meltzer gave it 2.25 stars. So we get to the main pay-per-view, and we start with the Briscoe brothers against PJ Black and Brian Johnson. Ring of Honor might have a hidden gem in Brian Johnson. And if you haven't watched, he is this arrogant, cocky heel that talks a lot of crap, but can kind of back it up. Kind of like an MJF. So he's talking, and he talks about the Briscoes and talks about their mom, and it's like, oh my gosh, this guy is just so good on the mic. And we get a good fight. It's really what it is a good fight. And Brian Johnson is able to hold up on his own in this. And everybody is good in this match. They really are. This is a good match. At one point, Jay accidentally punches Mark, and they'd been having some issues in the past, but it didn't really affect them. They were able to get it together and came back. They hit the Jay Driller Froggy Bow combination onto Brian Johnson to get the 3 count and the victory. A fun tag team match to start the show. I gave this a C+. Meltzer gave it 3.5 stars. The next match on the card was Flip Gordon against EC3, and the whole story to this was EC3 was upset that Flip Gordon used a chain to win their tag match, and EC3 doesn't think Flip has any honor. So the beginning of the match, EC3 tries to get a handshake, doesn't really get it, and it's an okay match. It's, back and forth. It's a slow match. There's really not a lot to say about this except for what happens post-match. So EC3 is able to get a submission move. He's able to get the STF onto Flip Gordon, who, oh, by the way, is the one that gets the next title shot of the Ring of Honor World title. And Flip taps out. EC3 gets the win. After the match is where it gets better. So EC3 extends the hand, wants the Code of Honor followed. Flip slaps him in the face once. EC3 extends his hand again. Flips, slaps him a second time. All right. EC3 extends his hand a third time. And Flip launches this loogie right into EC3's face and leaves. And it's so disrespectful, but it's such a good visual, of what happened, that this feud could be good if they get it right. I gave this a C. Meltzer gave it 2.75. So now we go to the 6-man tag title match. Shane Taylor Promotions of Shane Taylor, Moses, and Khan defend the belt against this makeshift trio of Dak Draper, Eli Isom, and Dalton Castle. And it seems like the whole story is Dalton is trying to get these two guys to work together, but at the same time is trying to have fun, but Draper and Isom want to win the titles. They want to win the 6-man tag titles, which I totally understand. And it made the match a little interesting, and I don't want to take anything away from Shane Taylor Promotions because Taylor and Moses and Khan looked really good. I think the one I was the most impressed with of the three was Khan. There's a guy that has a lot of potential. Moses has potential too. Don't get me wrong. And Shane Taylor, I think, has been one of the more improved wrestlers of the last year, year and a half. But there's something in Khan I see potential in. He could be a big star for Ring of Honor. End of the match, Shane Taylor hits Draper with a variation of the greetings from Asbury Park. Almost said greetings from Allentown. I haven't plugged that show in almost a month. So Shane Taylor Promotions win. They retain the 6-man tag titles. I gave this a C+. Meltzer gave it 3 stars. Now, I gave this a C. I'm sorry. I gave that match a C. Meltzer gave it 3 stars. Then we get to the last man standing match. Silas Young against Josh Woods. Woods attacks Young before they can even get to the ring. It is a fight. You have chairs. You have tables. I think they did bring a ladder out, but it wasn't really used. It was a good match. I liked the ending. Josh Woods hit a suplex off of the apron. They both go through 2 tables. Woods is able to get up. Young is stuck in the rubble of the table. Can't get up. Josh Woods wins. He is the last man standing. I gave this a C+. Meltzer gave it 3 stars. Now, at this point, and I'm gonna be honest, at this point, the show to me is like, okay, it's kind of been a good show. There hasn't really been anything that's broken out. But these last 5 matches are the show right here. Like at this point, it is boom, 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 boom. It is unbelievable. So the next match is Jay Lethal against Brody King. Now, early in the pre-show, they announced that the Maryland State Athletic Commission could not allow Tracy Williams to compete in the tag team title match because and this is a true story, he got run over. Basically, he was in a hit and run. So because of that, he is not allowed by the Maryland State Athletic Commission to compete in the tag title match. So Jay Lethal is going to compete in the tag title match later in the show. Remember that. Early on, Jay Lethal hits the lethal injection on the Brody King. Only gets a 1 count. Jay Lethal sends Brody out. He does 4 dives through the ropes. And Lethal, I think, attempts like a drop kick, and Brody has no effect. Like, it doesn't affect him. Then Brody King just destroys Jay Lethal. I mean, he destroys the poor man. And Lethal will not stay down. But Brody King just obliterates Jay Lethal. And he hits a couple of lariats, and then he hits 2 gonzo bombs to get the victory. This was a tremendous match as far as showing Brody King can be a dominant SOB, and doesn't matter who it is. He destroyed Jay Lethal in this match, and it looked wonderful. I gave this a B-. Meltzer gave it 3 3/4 stars. Then we go to the Pure Wrestling title match. Jonathan Gresham defending against Mike Bennett. The setup to this match is terrific. Mike Bennett won a gauntlet match to earn the right to challenge for the Pure Wrestling title. Jonathan Gresham does not respect Mike Bennett because of Bennett's actions of the past. There you go. That's a great storyline right there. Within the first 3 minutes of the match, Mike Bennett forces Gresham to use a rope break. So for those that don't know the rules of a Pure Wrestling match, everybody gets 3 rope breaks. After you use the 3 rope breaks, you can be pinned or forced to submit even if you're in the ropes. Pretty simple. This match is so good. It made me believe in Mike Bennett. Because Mike Bennett was so misused in WWE. I mean, we could all talk about that a million times. How misused he was in WWE. This is the match, to me, where I'm like, my God, this guy can do any style of wrestling, and he is good. And Bennett sells the leg, sells the arm, because that's Gresham's MO. And it's just a fantastic match. Great storytelling. And then we got to get to the ending. Because Bennett has a pile driver. See, Paul Orndorff reference there. If Bennett can hit a pile driver, he probably could win the match. He tries a few times. It ends up being reversed into a powerbomb. Bennett hits the pile driver onto Gresham. Goes for the cover. 1, 2, 3. Bennett wins. Bennett's the new champion. But the referee then sees Gresham's foot was under the bottom rope outside of the ring. And they wave off the 3 count. They say that Gresham used his last rope break. And it was so good because I popped. I was like, oh my God, they gave him the title. And it's like, oh no. So heartbreaking. Such great storytelling. And it's a tremendous match. And Gresham is able to put on a submission move. Bennett has no choice but to tap out. Gresham retains the Pure title in a tremendous match, a fantastic match. I gave this an A-. This was an unbelievably great match. Meltzer gave this 4.25 stars, and I can live with that. This match was amazing. And I know for me, after watching that match, I have more faith in Mike Bennett now. Because before he went into WWE, he was this hot, big star, and I was like, he's going to be huge. He's going to be great. WWE messed up tremendously. And you get one match like this, and it can rebuild your confidence. And this match did that, I think, for Mike Bennett. So, the next match is going to be the TV title match. Kenny King is on commentary. But before we go there, there's developments happening in the back. So, Red Titus is in a problem. He's in a pickle. Jay Lethal can now not compete in the tag title match. He can't compete. Tracy Williams is volunteering to compete in this match, even though the Maryland State Athletic Commission will not let him do it. Titus goes up to Gresham, who just had a 20-minute match. And he's like, you're the only one I've got left. You gotta do this match. And Gresham's like, okay, I'll do the match. So then we're told, excuse me, that Gresham is given one match to get himself together before coming back out. So remember that. Now we go to the TV title match. Tony Deppen defending the television title against Dragon Lee. This was another great match. The only thing that kind of stole it, and it's not their fault, was they weren't given a lot of time, because you could kind of tell by a certain point that they're kind of running out of time. So it's a tremendous match. It is back and forth. Tony Deppen is really becoming one of my favorite stars in professional wrestling. He's really becoming one of my favorite wrestlers to watch. Dragon Lee is so good. It is back and forth. They're throwing suplexes at each other. They're slapping each other. They're doing everything they can. Dragon Lee is able to hit the Poison Rana and then does a running knee to get the 3 count. Dragon Lee wins back the Ring of Honor television title. A tremendous match. I gave this a B+. Meltzer gave it 4.25 stars. So after the match, Chris Dickinson and Homicide run out to make sure that nobody in LFI attacks Deppen. Well, here comes Rhett Titus and Jonathan Gresham. We're having this match right now. This is the fight without honor for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles. It's a quick match. It's a brawl. It's a good match. There's one spot, and you could hear this, and it's actually kind of funny, where Rhett Titus does, I guess it's like a Death Valley driver through the table onto Homicide. And Homicide's in pain, and he's like, he's holding his ribs, and he screams at Rhett, "I hate you! I hate you!" It was kind of a funny moment. Gresham is a freaking workhorse. Jonathan Gresham is a god darn workhorse in this pay-per-view. He and Chris Dickinson go back and forth. He tries the octopus. It is tremendous. It is exhilarating. It is great action. Again, for the limited time that they got. Homicide, in the end, hits, what used to be called the Cop Killer, I guess is now called the 187 onto Gresham. 1, 2, 3. Dickinson and Homicide win the tag team titles in a fun match. I gave this a B. Meltzer gave it 3.75 stars. And I'm going to skip the women's segment because that's going to be something I'm going to talk about separately after this pay-per-view review is over. So now we go to the main event. It is Bandito against Roosh. Roosh has been the champion for almost a year and a half. Of course, a lot of it is because of what happened with COVID. Bandito got the shot by winning Survival of the Fittest. The bell rings. Roosh hits a drop kick. Then he hits the corner drop kick. And you're thinking, this is over. Ref goes for the count. 1, Roosh gets off. He had him. He had Bandito beat. But is so arrogant, is so cocky, that he didn't go for it. He could have won the match. Takes it to the outside. Beats up Bandito. Just is beating him up. And the referee's trying to get it back in the ring, but Roosh doesn't care. Bandito eventually does make a comeback and tries, to do anything he can, but it just seems like he can't do it. Then we get this spot where there are 2 tables set next to each other. And Bandito tries for a suplex, kind of like a belly to belly. It didn't look good, but I'm not taking anything away. And they both go through the table. Roosh manages to get in the ring at 18. Bandito just got in before the 20 count. Towards the end, Bandito hit the 21 plex. Could only get a 2 count. Rush then gets upset. And he starts to rip at the mask of Bandito, which, in Mexico, if you take your opponent's mask off, that's a disqualification. So he's ripping the mask of Bandito. You could kind of see his eyes and his forehead, and the referee is trying to break it up. So then Rush goes back, tries to go for it again, but Bandito reverses it into a rolling cradle. 1, 2, 3. Bandito is the new Ring of Honor World Champion. This was done so well. I did not think Bandito would win this match. And now he's the Ring of Honor World Champion. After the match, the rest of LFI come out to attack Bandito. And they leave him lying in the ring, attack him. And that is how Best in the World ends. I gave this match a B+. Meltzer gave it 4.25 stars. The final 5 matches, to me, saved this pay-per-view. They absolutely saved this pay-per-view. And it ended up making it a really good pay-per-view. This is a B+ pay-per-view. Almost an A, but I'm going to give it a B+. Now, one thing that I did mention a couple of minutes ago that I would talk about is they announced during the pay-per-view the brackets for the Ring of Honor Women's Title Tournament. There was one spot left open, and we had no idea who was going to be the final entrant. Well, it ends up being the debuting Chelsea Green, and this is a great addition, I think, to this tournament. So they revealed the brackets, and I'm going to run them down. So I'm going to do the left side and then the right side. So the left side of the tournament, Sumi Sakai against Roxy, Mandy Leon against Chelsea Green, Max the Impaler against Holidead, and Angelina Love got a first round bye because she beat Quinn McKay. So Angelina Love will not compete until the second round. The other side of the bracket is Miranda Elise against Alex Garcia, Maserati versus Nicole Savoy, Allison Kay versus Willow Nightingale, and Marty Bell versus Trish Adora. That's the right side of the bracket. The finals of the tournament will be at the next pay-per-view, Death Before Dishonor, which is Sunday, September the 12th, and will be held in Lakeland, Florida. If I had to pick, looking at the bracket, who's going to win? It's either Chelsea Green or Angelina Love. One of those two, I think, is going to win the title. And it's I don't know if Ring of Honor meant to do this, have the two favorites on the same side, because if they did, oops. But we'll see where it goes. My money right now is on either Angelina Love or Chelsea Green winning the tournament, but we don't know. We could be surprised. Could be somebody new here, that ends up winning the Ring of Honor Women's title. All right, we have 2 pay-per-views this weekend. 2 pay-per-views. Gonna talk about Slammiversary first, which is this Saturday night in Nashville, Tennessee. And this is looking like a stacked card. 8 matches in total. I will go through each match and I'll give you my prediction as to who will win. Going to start with W. Morrissey against Eddie Edwards. I'm going to give this to Morrissey only because they might do something with him. I'm not really sure. Matt Cardona and a mystery partner will face Tennille Dashwood and Caleb with a K. It's going to be a mixed tag match. I think the mystery partner is going to be Chelsea Green, and I think Cardona and Chelsea Green will be the winners. The Impact Wrestling Tag Team titles will be defended in a four-corner match. The current champs, Violent by Design, will defend against the Good Brothers, TJP and Falaba, and Rich Swann and Willie Mack. I'm going to say that Violent by Design will retain the tag team titles. The Knockouts tag team titles will be defended. Fire and Flava will defend against Rosemary and Havoc. I'm going to stick... No, you know what? I'm going to say Rosemary and Havoc win the tag titles. I'm going to change it up. Then we have Moose against Chris Sabin. That could be an interesting match. That really could be an interesting match. I'm going to say Moose wins that one, actually. Then we've got Ultimate X for the X Division title. Josh Alexander, the champion, will defend against Ace Austin, Rohit Raju, Mahabali Shera, Petey Williams, Trey Miguel, and Chris Bay. Holy cow, that's a lot of talent here in this match. I'm going to say Alexander retains the title. He just won it back in April, so I'm going to say Alexander retains the title. The Knockouts title will be on the line. Deonna Purrazzo will defend against a mystery challenger. I have no idea who the mystery challenger is going to be. So I'm going to say whoever the mystery challenger is, that is who will win the Knockouts title. Because the last time Deonna Purrazzo had the situation was at Bound for Glory, and she lost. So I'm going to say whoever the mystery challenger is will win the Knockouts title. And the main event for Slammiversary, it is a no disqualification match for the Impact World title. Kenny Omega defending against Sami Callihan. My mind is thinking maybe Sami Callihan wins, but it's no disqualification. So I think Kenny Omega is going to retain the Impact World title. So that is a look at Slammiversary, and this Sunday is Money in the Bank. And what I'm going to do to make this a little more interesting is I'm going to do the non-ladder matches first, if that's a right way of saying it. And then I'll save the two Money in the Bank ladder matches for the end. So we do have, in fact, a kickoff show match announced. Unbelievable. The SmackDown Tag Team titles will be defended. Rey and Dominic Mysterio will defend against the Usos. Yes, Jimmy Uso is still on television, even though he got arrested for another DUI, but that was talked about last week. Usos are going to win the tag titles. Jimmy and Jay will win the SmackDown Tag Team titles. The Raw Tag Team titles will be on the line. AJ Styles and Omos will defend against the Viking Raiders. It would kind of be cool to see the Viking Raiders win, but I think AJ Styles and Omos are going to retain the titles. There's still legs in that gimmick. The Raw Women's Championship will be defended. Rhea Ripley will defend against Charlotte Flair. God, this is so hard to pick. Of course, you just don't go against Charlotte Flair. You really don't. I'm going to say Charlotte wins. I say Charlotte wins the title back. Then we have the Universal Championship match, Roman Reigns against Edge. This one's kind of a no-brainer. Roman will retain against Edge. And the WWE Championship, Bobby Lashley against Kofi Kingston. Bobby, I think, has to retain the title. So I'm going to say Bobby Lashley retains the WWE title. Now, to the two Money in the Bank ladder matches. So I'm going to start with the women. And the women's got interesting because of the Bayley injury last week. Because last week, Carmella was going to be in the match. But she is now competing on SmackDown tonight for the SmackDown Women's title against Bianca Belair. So, here are the competitors. Alexa Bliss, Naomi, Asuka, Zelina Vega, Nikki Cross. I'm still calling her Nikki Cross, even though it's Nikki ASH. Liv Morgan, Natalya, and the new addition to the match, Tamina. Okay, so I'm going to have to do my process of elimination here. Natalya and Tamina are not winning. They're the current women's tag team champions. They're out of the picture. Alexa Bliss should not win because it looks like she might be going into a feud with Eva Marie. So Alexa's out. Asuka won last year, although it doesn't mean she can't win it 2 years in a row. I'm going to say Asuka's out. I have no idea what they were doing with Naomi at this point in time. So, Naomi's out. Zelina Vega just came back. She's out. So really it comes down to Nikki and Liv. Nikki has beaten Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair last month. But I don't know if WWE wants you to remember that or not. Liv is kind of on her own, and they had this story of, well, I should be in this match. I beat this person. I beat that person. I don't know. I really don't know. So I'm going to say, wow, damn, this is really hard, actually. I'm going to say Nikki wins this match. I think Nikki, almost superhero, will be Mrs. Money in the Bank. Now, to the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. This is an interesting group as well. Kevin Owens, Drew McIntyre, Riddle, Ricochet, John Morrison, Big E, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Seth Rollins. This might be the hardest Money in the Bank ladder match to pick. I know a lot of people are thinking Drew will win, but it seems like they're setting up a feud with Jinder Mahal. So that's going to take Drew out. John Morrison winning would be an interesting situation, but I don't think he'll win it. He's out. KO's not going to win. Shinsuke's not going to win. Oh, God, this is so hard. Because I already gave one to somebody on Raw, so that kind of eliminates Riddle and Ricochet from the equation. So it comes down to Big E and Seth Rollins. Oh, man. And you know, the thing is, with Big E, he's a viable threat to the Universal title. Very viable. I'm going to say Big E wins. I think it's his time. I think he's ready to get pushed into this position of him maybe being the next Universal Champion or WWE Champion. So I'm going to say Big E is Mr. Money in the Bank. Man, that's... I don't know who's going to win either one. I really don't. And it's going to be interesting to see how they do this. It really, really will. We have a little bit of a late-breaking piece of news. This was just announced on Mickie James' Instagram account that the NWA is reviving the Women's World Tag Team Championship at the pay-per-view in August, Empower, on August the 28th. And this is going to be that's going to be in St. Louis at the Chase Ballroom. So NWA bringing a new belt into the equation, the Women's Tag Team Championship. So on that note, that is going to do it for this week. Gonna do plugs. If you have any questions or comments, send an email. WrestlingMan@ThatWrestlingShow.com. Follow the show on Twitter at WrestlingShow11. Follow us on Instagram at ThatWrestlingShow. We have now gone over 200 members. Join our Facebook group. It is That Wrestling Show fan group. You type that in the search bar and you are right there. And if you can't find it, it's okay. I put the link in the description of each and every episode. And if you like what you heard here and you want a little bit more content, go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/That Wrestling Show, where with our highest tier, which is $3, you will be able to get pay-per-view reviews within 24 hours after the pay-per-view has happened. So, what I'm saying is, if you want first dibs on hearing the pay-per-view reviews, the $3 tier is the way to go. And as a matter of fact, this weekend is the best weekend to do it, because next week there's going to be no pay-per-view reviews next week. So the only way you're going to hear reviews of Slammiversary and Money in the Bank is by signing up for our Patreon. Now, why did I say there's going to be no reviews next week, or no pay-per-view reviews next week? Well, because I have something special planned for the 500th episode of That Wrestling Show. I just can't tell you what it is. It's a nice, wonderful surprise, and it's a way of me thanking all of you guys who have supported the show for 10 years and have listened to the show for 10 years. We're going to have something very fun set up. Now, also, I do want to mention that this coming Tuesday on this feed, this is not going to be a Patreon exclusive. This is going to be on the main feed. A little precursor of what you might get on Friday. Going to be a special audio presentation coming out, and it's I'm telling you, it is going to be really, really fun to check out. So everybody, have a good, safe weekend. Have fun wherever you are, and then come back next week for the milestone 500th episode of That Wrestling Show. And until then, I am Bill Yankovi, and this has been That Wrestling Show. And as always, wrestle on.